You just say when we're started.
Yeah. All right, looks like you're on.
Okay, get some chats up, that chat window up there.
All right.
And I'm on now.
Yes.
And Lee's live. Oh my God. People have questioned that for years. Hey, Aaron, do we need to shut off you?
I just got off TeamViewer now. We can just get off the phone.
Okay, take care, man.
All right. Bye.
Just talking to the boss, Aaron, who's set all this stuff up. I just realized, last time I was straining, I'm nearsighted, so I just took my glasses off so I could actually read everything here a whole lot better. Hearing you loud and clear, David, thank you. I never know what's going on at the other end. Bob, yeah, everything's going okay today. I had the plumbers here. I had an exhaust fan in my attic that crapped out, so I had to get plumber here to replace that, and just taking care of a whole bunch of stuff. Let's see, Haley, turn the mic input down a little. Let me see, where's the audio? Mic input. Is that any better? Please let me know if that's still too loud. Oh, Ian, you got your autographed photo. Great, great. Can you still hear me? Okay, great. Sean, thank you very much. Well, more than anything, I just want to say I hope everybody's doing okay out there and safe and sound. It's scary times here, and and I worry about everybody, but especially this. Mike was good to begin with. Oh God. I'll split the difference here. Let me just move it up just a touch here. Does your wife know that you're in the clubhouse? Shh. Actually, she's dealing with the dogs, and I just heard the front doorbell ring, so I think she's off doing that. Thanks for the oh, great, Colin, great. Between Rush and Oscar Peterson, holy crap, that's some fine company there. I figured the pictures were always. Should I get the door for you? Yeah, I just figured the pictures are always good. I think I have a picture in the car wash here in Pasadena where I live, and I think they had a hole in the wall. And like I said before, one of my pictures was cheaper than a can of spackle for them. Finger, it's. Let me see if you can. It's kind of hard to tell. Jesus, everything's backwards. You can see that red spot in there. It's not. It's not a blister. It was like I was working with a big pliers, and it crimped down on the thing and slipped, and it went down and pinched the fingertips. So what's going on there is deep down inside the near the bone. So it's funky. But I'm working with Judith Owen tomorrow and Friday, so I'm just going to have to do it. How does one acquire the coveted picture? The pictures are in the Clubhouse swag store. And then what they do is they get a bunch of them together and they send me the information. And then I go ahead and autograph all of them and mail them off myself. So my DNA is on the licking of it. Let's see. Thank you for the signed picture. You signed my James Taylor ticket before the show back in '82. Cool. That was the day before. Belushi's funeral. That was just free. Yeah, Lee, you're naked without you. Hey, Trey, you're naked without you. Yeah, it's just if I put them on, all that stuff is just a little fuzzy where I can see perfectly. Yeah, I personalize all the photos. So I get your name and I sign it to you. Or if somebody has a request to have it be for somebody else. Have you some of your humor in the next immediate family? The next immediate family video is a little more serious. It's a song called Slippin' and Slidin'. And we're going for kind of a darker thing. There's an app called 8mm. And that's what I used. I was shooting like film noir, black and white, my little segments, and and then there's another one that's like 1920s. It looks like an old, black and white film from the 20s. And I shot it in my basement, so it's really dark and kind of creepy. And but we're going to try to do them each different. But each of the guys is doing it without consulting each other, and then it's going off to the guy who edited Cruel Twist. And it should be out soon. Did you ever work with Trini Lopez? You know, I never had the chance to work with Trini, but I did a rock and roll autograph show a couple of years ago. And one of the people there doing autographs was Trini, and we hung out. And what a sweet cat. And he was nice, and his place is so etched in music history. And the idea that he got the COVID, virus and died from this is just so hideous. It's just terrible. Lee, how do you approach learning songs with complex time signatures? It's hard, the complex time signatures don't come natural to me. So I try to find, like where I can break it down. Like if the thing's in 7, 13, 11, any of these time signatures, you try to find a way to make it lilt. Guys like Simon Phillips, they would take that stuff and eat it for breakfast, and then they would just try to mess with you when you were playing with them. But Billy Cobham, we did a 30th anniversary tour of Spectrum, and when we were out, Billy gave me how he broke things down, and it's just there's like these pulses that you try to find. I remember back when I was an usher at the Hollywood Bowl when the Beatles played there. I was fortunate to be hired for the whole season, so I got to see the Ravi Shankar India Festival. And watching those guys play, you're spending the whole evening looking for one. I mean, what they hear in their traditional music is so far beyond me. It's crazy. Let's see, how do you approach, can't wait to see it, Lee, when you're playing 5-string and the song was originally 4, do you ignore the low string? When it comes down to playing 5-string bass, I still approach a 5-string bass as though it's a 4-string. And to me, the B string is there for if suddenly I needed a low D or an E flat or a C, it's there. But I've tended to find that when you're down there too much, especially in a pop or rock and roll situation, if you're down there too much, you actually create kind of a sonic hole between you and the guitar, and it actually sounds to me thinner than it would be if you played everything up the octave. If you're playing a low C on the B string, just go up to the C on the A string, and it's tighter and tougher at that point. Who haven't you worked with that you'd still like to, Sean? One of the guys I still watch his videos, and I think Back in the High Life is still one of the greatest records ever cut, and that's Steve Winwood. I've never had a chance to work with Winwood. I'd love to play with him. His history has been a huge part of my whole life. I mean, I was a huge Traffic fan. I was a huge Spencer Davis fan. So it would be kind of fun, but it probably won't happen, and that's cool. It's good to have things you long for and not get, because it keeps that carrot dangling in front of your face. Let's see, I saw Nigel Olson on YouTube. He mentioned playing with you. Yeah, Nigel and I got to play on Atlantic Crossing with Rod Stewart. And after that, and for those that don't know, Nigel Olson, it is Elton John's drummer. And then when Nigel got to do his first solo album, he called me up and asked me to play on it with him, and we're still really good friends. I bumped into him when he was in London with Elton, and I was there with Phil Collins. We were all in the same hotel, and all ended up on the street for the same giant fake fire alarm that went off. Oh, it wasn't fake, it was a grease fire in the basement, but it was pretty cool. Why didn't you play with the City, Carol? Rhonda, the City was before I hooked up with Carol, and I believe maybe Charlie Larkey might have been with her at that point and played bass on it. But I hooked up with Carol when we started with James in 1970 with James Taylor. My uncle was Steve Winwood's accountant. Oh, cool. And it's great. Paul Williams. One of those great names. I love Paul Williams. I worry about the 5-string. Yeah, a whole album can be ruined if the bass player uses the B too much. Yeah, it's really weird. It's kind of like, to me, 5 is like fretless. I mean, I love playing fretless when the song requires it, but fretless has such a personality to it that it can be really distracting in the wrong situation. So I'm really pretty ginger about how I use fretless. But when I use it, it's because I really feel that's the perfect color for what I'm working on. Let me look some more. Did you ever know Randy Meisner? Yeah, I knew Randy, and actually Randy and I had the same accountants, except he actually had a shitload of money for the account to deal with, and I was the side man. But with Randy, he really had the perfect world. I mean, he was there in the Eagles in the beginning, wrote huge songs, and then left and just spent the whole rest of his life doing whatever he wanted to do. Pretty amazing situation. It's like winning the lottery to me. It's pretty incredible. Let's see, during big long-term global tours, how did your wife family deal with being away for so long on the road, especially pre-internet Skype? Touring is hard. It's a double-edged sword. You love the work, you love out there playing for audiences, you love the camaraderie of everybody, but you do miss home. I never had children. I've been married a long time. This December will be our 50th anniversary. But it requires a lot of patience. Now, the perk that happens is like when I would be with Phil and we'd be like in London rehearsing for a month or something like that. And then she could fly over there and actually, go out and do whatever she wanted to do and hang out. If any of the other wives were there, they would go do stuff. Once you start actually gigging and hitting the road, then it's really impossible to have family out there. It's too much of a distraction because you're focused on the show. I just saw this. How about playing with Jesse Ed Davis? God, I love Jesse Ed. I do miss him. I got to do Gene Clark's No Other album with him, got to do Doctor My Eyes with him, and Jesse was just a trip, a funny guy. What was it like working with Eric Carmen? Eric was really great. He was really sweet. I loved being in the studio with him, and we've stayed in touch. I mean, that's, for as much as I go through constant crap with Facebook, and I'm always being thrown off. And like when I log a complaint on there, and a lot of people come on and go, "Oh man, you're just complaining about being thrown off." I'm usually thrown off about 150 days a year, and they never tell me what it's for most of the time or anything. But I've stayed in touch with people, that has made it worth being on there. Eric Carmen's one, it says, "Are you still close with Joni?" Yeah, I just saw Joni at the Tech Awards at the last NAMM show. They gave her like a Lifetime Achievement Award, and I was sitting at the same table with her, and we were yakking away. Because Joni was around in the very beginning with James Taylor. They were dating for a while, and I got to record with Joni. So she's doing good. I think your Frankenstein great. Yeah, Sean, that Frankenstein bass is like the greatest multi-purpose piece of equipment I've ever had. Every genre that I've played in, I've used that bass in, and it works. It's just an amazing piece of equipment. That's great. Colin, have you ever worked with Ian Pace? I just talked with Ian yesterday. He just sent me some music that he wants me to record on for him. So I'm directly involved with Ian now. But I've known Ian for years, and he's great. He's great. I always loved Deep Purple. Roger Glover's a friend. All those cats are just great. 50 years together, it's impressive. Yeah, it really is. It requires so much patience, especially on you have to be with somebody who is independent and has their life. And my wife has her own circle of girlfriends, and she has an active social life, which has really made this quarantine really harder for her than it is for me, because I got a lot of crap I'm doing because I'm kind of a loner most of the time when I'm not working. But for her, it's been really hard with, not going out to lunch, not going out to the theater, movies, doing all these things that she was used to. How do you cope with the heat? Ian, I hate the heat. It's a drag that I live in LA because it's getting up this weekend. It's supposed to be 100 again. I really hate the heat, but there's nothing you can do about it. But I'm Eastern European, so I'm Russian Polish by ancestry, and I kind of like when I drive everybody crazy on the road. Because like they're out in 3 jackets and scarves, and I'm still in a t-shirt. So I think Frankenstein's unfinished. Is it affected by weather? It is unfinished, and I've never put a coating on it, just because I don't want to take a chance on anything changing. I love it so much the way it sounds, so I leave it there. Yeah, Sean, the Frankenstein is active. It's an active bass, but they are the very first EMG pickups that Rob made, and its output is not nearly as huge as most active instruments are now. Like my Dingwall and my Warwick have much bigger output than it does, and it can't be passive where those have the option to be passive. But let's see. Just watched Rumble last Friday. Jesse, Doctor. Yeah. Let's see. Gary. Do you ever do any big band gigs? You know, every once in a while I'll get called for something. I love playing that kind of stuff, but the closest I ever get to that is like when we do like the pre-Grammy show or the Latin Grammys and we got big band and we're playing all these numbers. I love big band. Just don't get that many calls for it. Harry, how are you? Any memories of working with Phil Kagi? Yeah, Phil. Now, one of the great guitar players in the world. I wish we had a chance to work more often. Every once in a while, somebody says, "Oh, I saw Phil. He said to say hi," and then I send it up, salutations off to him. But Phil Kagi, one badass guitar player, and a beautiful cat. You have also decided every day that you want to stay married. Yeah, I mean, I really don't have any intention of changing that. We've had a pretty interesting life together, so. At this point in my life, if she throws me out, she throws me out. But I don't, we'll see what happens. Can you explain how you do sound effect with the bass on the JT song Mexico? It was so cool. I watched and couldn't quite figure. There should be no effect on it. I don't think. I mean, I'm just playing directly into an amp. I'm not going through any pedals or anything like that. So I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check it out and see if what's going on there. What did you think of Warren's Zevon's Dead or Alive 69 LP, Rhonda? Everything Warren's done is amazing. Warren is one of those truly gifted writers that could go from, extreme tongue-in-cheek and caustic and kind of crazy to the most beautiful and subtle songs. So. Warren was a special artist. The loss of him was a really massive loss to the music community and to the writing community. And he was a remarkable human being. The way he took on his impending death, and like when he did the last David Letterman show, and they talked about it. He's an amazing cat. Let me see what we got here. James, move to Canada. We'd love to have you. I love Canada. It would be heavenly. You hate the heat and it's so hot in Pasadena. Why didn't you ever put in a pool? It's funny. When I was growing up, one of the businesses my father had was cleaning swimming pools, and I used to go work with him. And he built our swimming pool. And it's great to have it. And then all of a sudden, it just turned into something we had to clean and deal with and all that. So I don't know if I'd get enough use for it. Maybe I should get one of those little kids' pools that I could just fall in and lay there, like kind of put it next to the hammock. So when I fall out of the hammock by accident, I could fall into a pool. Let's see, what's your favorite venue to play at? Wow, Eric, favorite venue. God, there's so many that are great. For beauty, sheer beauty, probably one of the most beautiful venues to play is Red Rocks outside of Denver. It's just up in the mountains there, and it is I've played there many, many times, and especially in the early days before they put a lot of permanent structure in the stage, and it was really organic at that point, but we played there on the Running on Empty tour, played there with James Taylor and Barefoot Servants, all kinds of Lyle Lovett, all kinds of people. Let's see, watched the Wrecking Crew documentary again over the weekend. Actually, the documentary we're doing on the immediate family is not the section. I mean, 3/4 of us were in the section, but this is really another entity. But it's coming along. I just talked to Denny Tedesco yesterday, who made the Wrecking Crew movie, and he's editing a bunch of stuff right now, keeping up on it. But we should have it out hopefully at the beginning of early in the year, along with our new album. Let's see. Watch Frank Sinatra documentary, All or Nothing at All on Netflix. Your recommendation was brilliant. Sinatra was amazing. His concert that I saw in the 80s at the Universal Amphitheater, like I said, was probably one of the best shows I've ever seen. He was probably one of the most professional, respectful artists I've ever seen on stage. It was a real masterclass in how to put on a concert, how to have all the attention on you, yet not demanding any attention. I mean, it was really, really amazing. Thoughts on Barry Oakley? Yeah, I loved his playing too, especially that Fillmore East album. Yeah, Barry. I loved all those guys. You know, that whole genre of music has so many cool players in it. Barry was great. Another great loss. I meant when you made the bass sound like it was another instrument for just a second, or maybe it was probably doing glisses, doing glisses and a little chordal stuff or some harmonics on that. I think there'll be a lot of Americans moving to Canada if November turns out in a terrifying, if they would let us in. So many borders are now closed to Americans. I mean, I've been called about gigs and stuff overseas, and we can't come. I have an American passport, and we're not allowed at this point. There's a lot's going to have to change in America before I can go to France and Germany and all this place. So the UK we can probably get into, but it's crazy. It's just insane. Yeah, Eric. Yeah, Red Rocks is on my bucket list. If you can ever get there to see a show, it is. You'll love it. It's really, really something special. Let's see, Sean. You have opened up on so many different artists and great music. I just want to say thanks. Thank you. I mean, the thing I've always absolutely loved is I'm a part of a fabulous community of artists, musicians, singers, writers. And I think everybody, at no matter what level they're at in this business, deserves respect and accolades for having toughed out this profession. It's not an easy profession by any means. Anytime you open that door that you walk through and look behind it, there's going to be 10,000 people that are waiting at that door for you to fail so they can go for that seat. So it's a tough business, but it is a fabulous industry. And man, I treasure all my friends and artists that I've worked with, especially, and everybody. Some of my dearest friends are still the crew guys I've been on the road with. I played at the Cutting Room in New York City, Gary, with Judith Owen. It was really fun. It's a sweet room. I really liked it. I'd love to go back there if it's still there. God knows what's going to be left after this. Watch this. Rhonda, the Sinatra documentary is great. Trey, string muting, fret hand, pluck hand, both. I'm not sure how I mute. Because the thing with me is I'm not a technical player. I know guys in town that, like, if you put a gun to my head right now and said, how many frets are on your Frankenstein? You would have to shoot me. I actually have no idea. I've never counted them. I don't even think about that. My answer would be enough. But when it comes down to how because I have a lot of people commenting, they're watching my right hand technique and stuff, and I'm going, man, I don't have a clue. When that red light comes on, or the count off happens, I go into a zone and I'm just playing. I've never really given a thought to kind of the technical side of what I'm doing. It's fascinating hearing what people are interpreting of what I do, because I've never thought about it. Let me see. Your video of Jeff Porcaro's Wrestling Place was so moving. Yeah, I go there quite regularly and sit on the bench next to Jeff. I haven't been up there since Mike, and I think I think I was there once. I think Mike is buried right next to Jeff. But I would go up pretty regularly to sit at Jeff's grave, because I was so close with him. He was one of my best friends, and when he died, it was like somebody took a baseball bat and sucker slugged you right in the back of the head. And then not long after that, Carlos Vega died, and not long after that, Larry London died. So it's in Don Grolnick and so many. I've lost so many. It's unbelievable. What did you think of the punk movement when it was happening? Sex Pistols. Yeah, I loved it. I would never have been in a punk band. It's just not the way I think. But I could absolutely appreciate what they were going for in it, and kind of the energy and of it. It was great. I pretty much can embrace almost every genre of music, because especially as a studio musician, you get called to work on all kinds of things. And if I got called to do a punk album, I would do some homework and then try to figure out how to make it happen. Somebody said, have you ever worked with Mike Finnegan? Yeah, Mike Finnegan's one of the best keyboard players, singers ever. I mean, he's just great. But when it comes down to embracing things like that, you just you figure out what the essence of it is. I always hated it when we'd be on sessions where they say, can you dumb it down, like you've only been playing a month, kind of, and you're going, Well, Jesus, I don't know, but you do your best, and you just try to, maybe hit yourself in the head with a hammer or something like that. But it's funny. Let's see. I love the ERA music that you were. Yeah, the ERA project, the ERA project, was really amazing, and the trips we took to Russia were great. And the band was great. First time Neil Wilkinson was playing drums, and the second time we went, Carl Brazil was playing drums, and they're two of my favorite drummers. I loved working with them, so that was great. And the singers were all great. And Nono, the guitarist, he and oh God, Jesus, got a senior moment here. I'll move on to another question while I sit here and space that. Do you know Michael Rhodes? Yeah, I know Michael very well. Michael is a fabulous, wonderful bass player, and he's one of the bass players that owns Nashville. So many projects are Michael. I met him when I first started going to Nashville and working, and we became immediate friends. Have you ever played 8 or 12 string basses? No, I don't think they're a novelty if they're in the right hands. I see some of these basses, then the neck is that wide and it's strings for years. I would never play it. I don't know what I would do with it. But then you see somebody who's had it built and knows how to use it, like a Chapman stick. I really wouldn't know what to do with a Chapman stick, but when I see Tony Levin playing one, I just go, man, that's a bitchin' instrument. I'm pretty much a traditionalist. I'm really happy on 4-string, but I've found over the years that I really needed to embrace 5-string because there's so many things, so much of what I do is replacing synth bass that's been programmed for album projects. And generally, whoever's programming, their left hand, of course, I'm looking at the screen and it's on the right. This is really kind of dyslexic, weird. But they tend to really be bottom dwellers on the keyboard when they're programming, and I really needed to find a bass that really could read really well on a low end B string. So if I could hit B, C, whatever, down in that range. And that's when I discovered Dingwall. I fell in love with it because to me it's one of the best B strings there is. But when I go on the road, I tend to only bring like 2 basses with me on tour. And they're redundant. They're 2 Dingwalls, and one is there strictly as a backup if something happens to the other one. And because I don't change instruments. I see some guys that go out with a dozen basses and they're changing between every song and stuff. I don't really think that way. I play in different positions to create different sounds. But if there was one song in the entire show that required an E flat, then I'll just play 5-string for the whole show. And that's just become like my thing. But when I go to the studio, I always bring Frankenstein and my Warwick for that semi-acoustic sound, and I bring my Dingwall with me. I'm going to be working tomorrow and Friday with Judith Owen, and I'll bring all those with me to the studio and see which one works best for that project. Let's see. Punk bass is easy. Chug along in an opening and then hit 1 and 3 or 2. It was really funny. Our old keyboard player, J. Peter Robinson, with Phil Collins on the '85 tour, and they played in Brand X together. At one point, he was dating this girl before he got married, and I said, "So what'd she do?" He goes, "Oh, she's a punk bass player." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "Yeah, she goes, do 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 do. 1, 2, 3, 4." I said, okay, that's great. How did your involvement with Second Chapter of Acts come into being? Second Chapter of Acts is a really wonderful contemporary Christian act. Buck Herring is the husband of Annie Herring, and he engineered and produced with them all their albums. I got to know Buck when he was the engineer at a studio called Sun West on Sunset and Western in Hollywood, and I did like Helen Reddy's "I Am Woman." I played on that, and we cut that there. A whole bunch of records, and through that he said, "I'd love for you to work on our family's albums." And I worked there. They had a compound down in Texas at one point, and I flew down there and spent time with them. And then they got a place, I think, in Colorado, and I went up there and worked with them up there. And I love them. They're gifted, talented people. I did a ton of contemporary Christian albums. I think they hired me to try to heal me, and it never worked. But I did a lot of Stephen Curtis Chapman records and Avalon, Twyla Paris, whole bunch of those. I did most of those in Nashville, though I would fly down there and do those. Recommended artists in music. As a drummer, it's like if Hal Blaine was on it, I knew it would be good. Yeah, I mean, it's like so many people, like in the days of albums, they would go, to the record store and look through albums, and they would buy things based on who they saw on the record. And certainly, like, Hal is one of those guys that, he brought his A game whenever he sat down at a kit, so hopefully the project would be good, but you can't always count on that because we're working musicians and you do get called for projects, and at the end of the day you've put your all into it, but you just kind of go, well, whatever, it's a paycheck. I don't want to feel that way, and I would never treat it less than anything else, but some things just, you've got to have mountains and valleys to have variety, and some is. Let's see, I saw Judith's name pop up there. The stuff you do with Judith is wonderful. There's always a double bass in the background. Do you ever use it? It's Harry's. The stuff I do, the video stuff we do is usually over at her house, and that's Harry's got uprights all over the place. He's got one in London I'd kill for. Every time I go to their place in London, I just love playing that bass. It is something special. Have your travels ever taken you to Cape Town, South Africa? I think you'd love. David, the thing that was a drag was when we were doing the first final farewell tour, we were supposed to be going there, and then when Tarzan loomed its head and the producers decided Phil needed to be in New York for the rehearsals, we ended up losing Southeast Asia and Africa, I believe, on that tour, and they never got rebooked because Phil called it quits pretty much after that tour. I would love to go. Any chance I could go, I would grab it. Let's see, Aaron, I think he was referring to the 8-string as a 4-string with you. Yeah, I had an 8-string at one point. I just never really got a lot of use out of it. I think they're all interesting, and I think anything anybody wants to do with an instrument is great. I've seen some really cool. Steve Bailey has a great 3-string bass hanging in his office at Berkeley. I think I could do a gig with that without any trouble at all. I think I could do a 1-string, but you just have to you just pick wisely where you're going on the thing. But why not? When you're on a big tour, is there a division between the artist and the road crew, or is it one big family? Sean, it is. Well, it depends on the artist. Some artists barely even talk to each other. They could be a band on the road, and each guy's got his own tour bus and everything. They just don't do it. But like all the ones I've ever been on, everybody's one big family. Everybody knows everybody. We all eat dinner together. We hang together. We travel separately. Generally, like the crew leaves, they're in buses, and like with Phil Collins, we had a plane. And then the crew had it was like a dozen buses, because they're like, at the end of the day, there's probably like 90 or 100 people out there in the crew, so it's huge. Michael W. Smith, yeah, I did an album with Michael. I never worked at Bill. I've never worked at Vince Gill's home studio. I've done a lot of work with Vince over the years, but never been out to the house, so I've never seen his home setup. But we were always just in the studio in Nashville. I believe you're friends with David Crosby. Yeah, Cros is doing good. He's still, he was working like crazy. And then the pandemic hit, so he's like everybody else. He's not out gigging or anything, but I'm sure he's writing. But I've known David since '68. And I loved working with David and Graham. I loved doing stuff with CSN, CSNY. So it's, they're old family at this. Christopher, how did they try to heal you? I think sometimes they would just look at me as like this sort of a crazy person, and they say, let's get him down here and we'll do some hands-on and try to make him a better person. And by the end of it, they were all going crazy and turning into me. I think I was a little too much for him. But no, I'm really good friends with all those people. And Brown Bannister is one of the producers I worked with down there. Great deal. Did many projects with him. Debbie Boone, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, they were fun. I always loved going there and doing those projects. And the thing that was cool about going to Nashville and doing country projects and then contemporary Christian projects was generally most of the musicians were different on the projects. You didn't see the same guys doing the two different genres. So I got to know a lot of different people down there that had never really worked with each other before. Do you remember the first time you recorded in Pro Tools rather than tape? You know, I'm trying to remember. I think I remember one of the earlier projects I did where they were really into Pro Tools was a Lisa Loeb album many, many years ago. And they were talking a lot about Pro Tools when we were recording, but I can't really remember because these things become insidious. They just sort of show up one day and that's what's going on. Hey, Lee, just a hello, let you know I really enjoy the bass player interaction at the close. Thank you, man. I appreciate that, Anthony. Rhonda, I was a kid working for too many years at record stores. You were always there on every record. Yeah, I'm like gum on your shoe. You know, you think you got rid of me, and then there's a wad of me stuck to the carpet, and you got to get some ice cubes and peanut butter out. I think you mentioned your hot rod is back. It's not back from the shop yet. We're just doing some final tweaking. I had it at my mechanic's house. He was storing it for me and firing it up for the 2 years I was basically gone with Phil Collins. And that's when we decided, look, it really needed to have that radiator recorded. It kind of rotted out, and so the radiator just got back. He just reinstalled it, and he's doing some tweaking. So I should have it back by the end of the month, and then I'll do some videos with that. Maybe a video of me being pulled over by the police. Maynard Ferguson, his cover of Country. Maynard did a cover of Country Road. God, I'll have to go check that out. Because it's always amazing, these things that pop up. I mean, with Danny Korchmar, he wrote Machine Gun Kelly for James Taylor, and we found out that Nancy Sinatra did a really cool version of it. So I'll have to go check that out. Did Zivan talk about working with REM guys, with Hindu love gods? Rhonda, no, I never heard about that. I'll have to find out about that. So you played with One Stallone. Have you ever played? Yeah, I've worked with Frank. I know Frank much better than Sly. Frank's, he's a good hang. We used to always bump into each other at flea markets and stuff like that, and he called me. And I worked with a bunch of those guys, the guys from, what was their names? Here I go again. I know who George Winston is, certainly piano player, friends. Yeah, George Winston's really one of the greats in that almost new agey kind of extemporaneous piano playing. George's a fine musician. Can you share, Harry? Can you share working with Amy Keys? Amy's fabulous. Amy's been singing with James. I mean, with Phil, I wasn't there when she started. I stopped working with Phil in 1990 at the end of that tour, and she came along at the next tour. And then I started back up with Phil at around 2000, and that's when I hooked up with Amy. And Amy is just the most delightful person to be on the road with. Sings great, arranges great. She's been with a ton of people. She's fabulous. Anybody listening needs a singer, I would recommend Amy in a second. Have you ever seen the Fab Four with Will Lee? I've heard this stuff, and Will's a good friend, but I've never been around when they've played LA, so I've never had a chance to see them live. But I love what they do. I know Jimmy Vivino's a really good friend, and all these guys, and I love that they chose to honor the Beatles with what they do. Did you guys ever try your hand and produce? I've never really wanted to produce. I don't think I have the patience to produce because you have to live with a project too long. I kind of like being, come in, do the bass parts, do basic tracks, and then move on to another project. When I'm on the project, I throw a lot of production ideas out, but I've only officially been listed as a producer on one project, and it was a co-production with Gail Davies on Where's a Woman to Go many years ago. And I love it. Did you ever play with Carly Simon, Greg? I think the bass riff at the beginning of yours. Yeah, the bass bump is really cool. I've worked with Carly, and we're still really, really good friends. But that was a really great hook at the top of that. Every once in a while you hear those a bass hook, and you hear like half a bar, and you know what the song is going to be because the bass was so defined, like money, money, money. Anthony Jackson. It's like wrote the song basically. some of the best musicians I ever played with were at church. Really good readers and easy to work with, even in America. Some great musicians come from Christian background. Billy Preston. Yeah, Christopher. Yeah, I worked with Billy Preston in Sarita. I worked with Billy on many projects. Yeah, and I mean, I watch a lot of videos of like church players. And man, they are like monsters. You see like great, unbelievable B3 players, but great rhythm section players, some monster bass players out there. You know, I mean, every genre, everything can have like remarkable players in it. It's what it is. It's just music. George Winston December album is a staple of my Christmas playlist. Brilliant player. Sean, yeah. Well, you have such a good soul. Well, reflects on who you are. I hold you in great esteem. You'll get over it, RJ. Don't worry. Since you're a former pianist, have you ever played keyboard bass? No, I could do it, but I've always really pretty much hunkered down with the bass parts, and sometimes I've done stuff with pedals where they wanted to have sound more like a Moog kind of a thing, and I'll, play around with that a bit. But I see so many bass players that always have like a keyboard bass setup and all that. I've just never, it's all predicated also on the kind of projects you get called for. And most of the projects that I do get called for have never really had a demand for that. It's something I might add later on with the immediate family. There's a lot of things that I'd like to be reincorporating my Taurus pedals, my MIDI step pedals. There's a whole bunch of things I want to do, but it's just once we can work again, it'll all come along. I saw Harry Nilsson name there. Did you ever know? I knew Harry, but I never got a chance to work with him. And Harry was one of the most talented people. And Jesus, when he passed, you just kind of... It's so heartbreaking when I look at the list of those who are gone, because there was so much talent, so many gifted artists that are no longer with us. But the beauty of it is they leave a legacy that can be enjoyed for generations to come, especially if you're hungry enough to look. And that's kind of the cool thing with YouTube, is that there is all of that stuff there. If you get, insomnia one night, just go through YouTube and make discoveries. It's pretty cool. How come you didn't do the tour after the Sirius tour? Some things went down, and it was just Phil made some changes in there, and that's when Chester and I were no longer working with him. But that's the artist's call. And so I just went on and did other things, and then he missed me, so he called me back in 2000, and that was it. And Chester was back, and so it was like the old team back together again. But there's so many dynamics in this business, good or bad. It doesn't matter. You just you move on. There's some interesting stuff. Where can I find music of Larry Mahobarak? Because Larry was one of the finest keyboard players in Los Angeles, and but he did a lot of television, a lot of movies, and he had it was a jingle account. He did commercials for this company out of Australia, and I think he finally just got tired of it. I'm not sure if he did any solo projects or not, but he moved to Australia, and that's where he lived and passed. But his son Jamie Mahobarak still is a major working keyboard player here in LA. He's great. What were your experiences like working with Andrew Gold? Andrew was like ridiculously talented. I didn't. I saw him. I worked with him just before his passing. He came from a deep family. His father, Ernst Gold, wrote the score to the movie Exodus. His mother was Marnie Nixon, who was one of the greatest studio singers ever. She was the voice of Maria in West Side Story. She was Audrey Hepburn's voice in dude, your brain is going away. My Fair Lady. Andrew was great, and he could play anything. He was just an amazing player. Great. Bill, did you ever record at Caribou Ranch? Yeah, I've got a discussion about that when I put up the Veronique Sanson video that we did. I was doing a Stephen Stills album project up at Caribou in the dead of winter, and Stephen had his wife with him, who was Veronique Sanson, and we ended up doing an album, some songs of hers too. Let's see, Resist Space. Are there any autographed pics of you with it? We're putting all kinds of stuff together. I just sent Aaron a whole bunch more pretty great pictures, so hopefully there's going to be a bunch more stuff coming up for T-shirts and pictures and all that stuff on the site. I'm enjoying that so much. It's really a lot of fun. I have the same MIDI pedals as you, really well-made gear and great functionality, clearly designed for players rather than engineers. Yeah, Duncan, yeah, really great stuff. I mean, it's amazing. What studio do you want to play at but have not played at, Eric? I don't know. I've played at a lot of studios, and most of them are gone now. I mean, it was so great. I was working in rehearsing with Phil, and we got to go down to Peter's studio in Bath. Worked at a whole bunch of studios. Got to do Abbey Road and Air Lyndhurst, and worked in Air Montserrat. So I'm really not sure. If there's studios I haven't played at, I'm sure there's some that I don't even know about, and one day I'll get a call and say, "Where's that?" and go in and go, "Ooh, this is pretty cool." Let's see, how is Phil doing these days? I hope he's well. Yeah, about an hour ago I emailed him just to check in, see how he and the family are doing. They're in quarantine at home. They're just laying low, and like everybody else, you got to, you do what you got to do in this day and age. Yeah, would absolutely love some Taurus pedals, Aaron. Yeah, I mean that's it's really, I can't really do that at home. It's the way I'm set up there. I love the Taurus pedals, though. They're sitting in a case in my garage. It's hopefully I'll be able to whip them out. Randy, you turned me on to Rebecca Johnson, Jacob Collier, and Reinhardt. Who else? Man, there's so many people out there. If people are enjoying that, I'm going to continue to discover people and pull up people that I know about that maybe other people aren't aware of, and I'll post their stuff too. Because, like Rebecca Johnson is so unbelievable to me. She's one of my absolute favorite musicians. She sings her butt off, plays her butt off. Her trio, especially the trio stuff, the drummer and the guitar player are so ridiculous. The pocket that they sit in is so good. I watch her stuff all the time, and we've become friends. I mean, we write. She's the one who said, "Please do Behind the Lines," and that's when I ended up doing the video for that. That was a handful to dig back into and just kind of go, "Wow, this was something." Yeah, let's see what we got here. Bass player. Any bass player you think is overrated? I don't even want to get into that because there are some, and there's amazingly underrated bass players. I rather look at them. It's kind of like you can look at like the career of Peter Cetera, from Chicago. He became the crooner and had an amazing career as a solo artist. But when you listen to the very early CTA Chicago stuff, Peter's a badass bass player. Just his bass playing was great. There's so many out there. But the overrated ones, whatever. Who cares? I'd rather just focus on the people that are bringing it. Could you put Homeward Through the Haze by Crosby on YouTube? Love your bass. Yeah, I'm going to go back and visit like the Crosby Nash stuff and all that, like Wind on the Water. I was sitting there looking at, I did a bunch of stuff with Wilson Phillips. I'm going to dig back into them too. Eagle Ray, I never met Jimi Hendrix, but I heard Jimi Hendrix live. There used to be, I heard him, actually it was a place called Devonshire Downs in San Fernando Valley, and it was like a big fairgrounds back in the 60s, and probably way before that. And they did a concert there, and Hendrix was playing at it in 1968, and I went and saw him, and I was standing next to the stage watching him play, and I looked next to me, and there was David Crosby, and that's when David and I met for the first time. And there was a club called The Experience in Hollywood back in the late 60s, And I would go there all the time trying to jam and meet people and all that. And Jimmy used to come in there kind of regularly, and he would just go up and play. And he'd take a guy's right-hand guitar and flip it upside down and play the whole thing upside down, and just, it's like unbelievable, unbelievable. Do you happen to know what amps Waddy uses with the meter? He's still dinking around. They just changed some rigs for the last thing we did and seemed really happy, he and Cooch and Steve. So I'm not sure what they are. I'll have to find that out, and I'll get that. When things calm down on this, I'm also going to invite like Waddy or Cooch or any of the guys over and have them hang with me at one of the YouTube videos. And we'll talk, or maybe have them come over for one of these and we can both be talking to you. It's just the pandemic has really just put the kibosh on so much of interaction. But I really want to bring everybody. I want to go up and visit Fred Wallachie's shop now, because Fred was one of the major people in Los Angeles when he owned Westwood Music, and everybody was hanging. You'd go in there and Jackson Browne would be hanging out, and all these cats, Warren would be there, and Ry Cooder. Just, it was a watering hole. And he's got a really cool place in Malibu now. So I'd like to interview him and have you guys meet him. Let's see, I have a fun story concerning Elvin and Rod's version of Fooled Around from my time in the band. Oh, Evan, man, I'd love to hear that. That would be great. Chris, if Billy Cobham called and wanted to do Spectrum 2, what gear would you bring to the session? I would probably bring my old Peace Love bass that I did the first Spectrum album on and say, the hell with it, let's just keep on going. The amp is long gone. The amp I used on that session was a little Univox, which I had for years. I used it with James Taylor for years and stuff. And I think it was a single, I can't remember, I think it was a single 15 in it. It was a funky little amp, but man, it worked great. But I would probably, I would bring a couple of basses depending on what Billy's writing was. It would all be predicated on the writing. But I'd love to do something with Billy again. I love Billy. And Spectrum is still one of the real great highlights of my career, was being involved in that project with he and Jan and Tommy. It was quite an experience. Let's see, I sat down and did my best to learn the Pretender album. I just revisited. I had a lot more to learn 40 odd years your daily sessions. Yeah, Don, I'm relearning it all too. It's a trip. It's one of these things. Having started this, when I started it, it was, we had just come off of Phil's tour, and I was basically showing the bass parts to all the songs from that tour. And then the only one I haven't done from that tour is Take Me Home. Maybe when the final last video, I can squeeze it out of my old cold dead hands. I'll do Take Me Home then. But the thing is, now that this thing has gone on for months and months, I'm constantly looking at old material, and some of these songs I haven't played in since like 1973 or two. So it's a challenge every day for me to to listen to them, maybe run it down once or twice, and I don't have charts for anything, so I'm just groping. And that's why, like when I said at one time, because somebody I think was almost wanted to use these as a tutorial, but they were looking back at the original records too. And I said, there's no way I'm going to sound just like the original record, because I wouldn't normally anyhow, but I'm not doing a karaoke thing. I'm not going back and studying it. I just want to grab the essence of it, and I'll leave some things out or add some things on these. But it's a real challenge, and I'm really embracing it, because it's keeping my gray matter functioning, which would it would be easy to lose it in this situation of not being with other people. And playing. It's one thing to be practicing on your own. It's another thing to be playing with your mates. So, look, some more questions. Is there a particular Danny Korchmar part that you would recommend as an example of great rhythm? Al, Cooch to me is one of the finest rhythm guitar players I've ever worked with, and so many songs go back into. You go check out Cooch's albums. He's got like Innuendo. He's done a few solo albums by himself from back in the day, and they're pretty definitive in his style of playing. So I'm sure they're here on YouTube. If you pull up Danny Korchmar, you'll find some great stuff, or some of the stuff he did on Tapestry is like really amazing. Let's see, Pad, as a piano player, I have such admiration for Matt Rawlings. Oh God, yes. I was wondering if you'd work with him with a lot. Yeah, when we did the Lyle Lovett Large Band album, that was the first time I met Matt Rawlings. And I walk in the studio and I look in the piano booth, and I thought Doogie Howser was there. I mean, Matt looked like he was 13 or 14 years old. And he sits down and play, and it's like he's a 70-year-old genius. Matt's a remarkable pianist. I love working with him, and he's a great producer. I mean, he's really, he's doing it all, and I love him as a friend and a musician. We did an album together a while back with a girl named Allison Porter, and she's well worth checking out. And if any of you, like in the old days, saw a movie called Curly Sue, Allison was that little girl in that, and she also won, I think, America's Got Talent when she was like 9 years old or something like that. But she called me and Matt to do her album a few years ago, and she's fabulous. She's a great writer, really got a great voice. She's really kind of the ilk of like a Dolly Parton, a little softer Dolly. Amazing. And then they called me to do her last album, and it was when I was with Phil, and I couldn't do it. And I really regret that. Don't regret being with Phil, but I regret not being able to do Allison's album. But check out Allison Porter. Man, she's the real deal. Colin Geddy Lee. Look, Geddy's Geddy. It's like I just feel so bad that it looks like they won't be anymore. You lose a drummer like that, and it's some of these bands have tried to go on, but it's really hard. How do you replace Keith Moon? Any of these things like that. You just go, Jesus. Yeah, Geddy's amazing. He's I love the fact sing, play, guitars, pedals, key, all that stuff. He's a badass. He's good. Fred is one of the most delightful people I've met him. Ellen. Yeah, I'll hunt Fred down and we'll get him into this. Take Me Home's one of my favorites, David. Yeah, it's great, and it's such a great way to end a show with Phil. Was taking me up, Take Me Home. Did you ever play with Ted Green, Horace? In high school, my sister's 2 years younger than me, and she had a girlfriend, and her girlfriend said, "Oh, my brother plays guitar, and you guys ought to meet." And I went over to the house one day, and her brother was Ted Green, and Ted and I used to jam in high school together. And I tried to get him on some sessions, and it just didn't work. He was really content to do his books and his stuff. On the sessions, he played well, and then they would say, take a solo, and he'd go, nah, I really don't want to, I'd rather not take it. It was kind of one of those weird things that he really had his thing. But I remember when I was on the road with Mahavishnu Orchestra when the section was opening from, and I was playing backstage with McLaughlin. And I said to John, what do you think about Ted Green? And he's like, oh, Ted Green. I mean, it was one of those guys that, man, every guitar player would have, uber reverence for him. And he passed a while back, and stuff. Let's see, Nicholas. Hey, Lee, Jeff Berlin has been pretty outspoken against metronomes. Do you have any opinions on metronomes? I have more opinions on Jeff. Why not? Why not sit there and work with something just to work on your time and stuff? And, don't use it as a complete crutch. But to me, anything, I see all these things, especially, Jeff tends to go off on, teaching methods and all this. Now, Jeff's a monstrous player. He's a great, great player. Oh, wrong side here. He's a tremendous musician. But to me, there are so many aspects to all of this that I would never deny any of them. If you were going to sit down with a metronome and just work on, like, if you wanted to do like some Tower of Power tunes, and you wanted to get into that Rocco thing of the, just his 16. Then if you really want to be solid, then you put on a metronome and you do it to get muscle memory for that tempo, and work at that. To deny that that's something to be embraced or used in any way. I just think, pardon my French, but I think so much of what I hear of guys like that is just bullshit. You just get out there and you work at things and you find the tools that are good for you. You know, you hire different people to come work on your house or your car. Some guy's going to have Makita, and some guy's going to have Ryobi, and some guy's going to have Milwaukee, and somebody's going to have Craftsman. They're all great tools. You know, you use what works for you. You know, don't whatever. Let him go out and do what he talks about. But no, Rhonda never crossed paths with Thelonious Monk, but certainly was a fan. Man. I've heard Coots say he didn't want people to listen to innuendo. Well, everybody has their thing. There's so many guys that say, "Oh, don't listen to that record. It's not good." It's like one of my favorite records with Phil was "No Jacket Required." I love that record, and Phil in interviews all the time says, "Oh, that's like my least favorite album." I just go, well, whatever. I loved it, and all I ultimately at the end of the day care about is the stuff I care about. Everybody else can pick their material. Lee, hope you're well. Having a bass build going with Mando frets. Man, Joe, I hope you enjoy them. Frankenstein we built in '73. I've used it on probably 85% of everything I've played. I play hard. I use vibrato, and I am on my third refret on that. So don't worry about them suddenly wearing out and disappearing on you. Let's see. Describe Japan tour at 20 degrees below zero. Wow, Blair. We were on tour back in the early 70s with James Taylor. We ended up playing Sapporo in northern Japan, and it was the dead of winter. And there was a snow festival that they had every year there in the big park, and there would be sculptors from all over the world coming doing snow and ice sculptures. I felt so bad. There were like military bands sitting on giant ice train cars playing, and I think they all had fiberglass mouthpieces. Otherwise, your mouth would have been stuck to it. It would have been like Christmas Story with the guy's tongue stuck to a pole. Thank God we were playing indoors. But man, it was. I love cold, but I hate playing in cold. My hands get nailed pretty hard in cold. So but I do love being out wandering around in the cold. That's better for me. Simon Phillips. Simon's fabulous. I had the best time with Simon out there with Toto, and I've done some projects with Simon that weren't Toto related, and he's an amazing musician. I mean, he's one of those techno people. He's got his studio, and he's a great engineer. He's got everything dialed in. Where I'm like just kind of going, whatever. He's in there like tweaking constantly and stuff. But man, he is one badass player. Size really a trip. Michael Yoakum, Bob. Yeah, Michael and I used to work constantly when he lived in Los Angeles. He was one of my favorite drummers to play with, and I know he's gone through a lot of health issues lately, but I think he's doing really well now. But yeah, he's great. I love Michael, and I love his attitude. He and I are kindred spirits. We're always being thrown off together. No, Sean, I didn't play in Mahavishnu Orchestra. Our group, The Section, opened for Mahavishnu Orchestra, and we spent about 2 months together, and that's how I got to know Billy Cobham. And so when he got the offer to do Spectrum, we had become friends on the road, so he called me to do Spectrum with him. What's your favorite song on Flag? Did you all talk about it being JT's New Wave LP? No, not really, Rhonda. I'd have to listen to it again. I mean, I can't, because like the other day, I was talking about it, and I quoted a song from Flag, and everybody wrote and said, no, that's on Gorilla. Yes, I have to go back and see what's on it to know what's going on. Let's see. Did you ever get to know Tommy Caldwell? No, I never got to know Tommy. I mean, I knew him by reputation, but not never had a chance to hook up. How was Stephen Stills to work with? It depends. There's a lot of things that come into play. God knows the talents there. I mean, I've loved Stephen since Buffalo Springfield, so we'll leave it at that. What changed for you in 3 years when you watched the Wrecking Crew record a song for y'all, and then you played with them and started your career? Kim. Well, so much really changed. Because I was still playing all the time after we did our group therapy album and the Wrecking Crew played on it. I was still in college and working in bands all the time, playing clubs. I never thought I was going to have a career in music. I was an art science major in college, thinking I was going to perhaps be a medical or a technical illustrator or an oceanographer. I thought about applying to Scripps and maybe studying oceanography. But I kept playing, so my skills just kept, getting better from just playing 4 sets a night in a club with really fun bands. And then when I started with James Taylor, all of a sudden my name got around because of James, because our names were on his album. So I started getting calls for other things, and I would walk into the studio, and there would be Hal, there would be Mike Melvoin, there would be Larry Necto, all those people, and I'm just so. And then I would tell them, I'd say, God, you guys did our band's record back in the day, and they all became really close friends. I loved all those guys, and Tommy Tedesco. I loved working with Tommy, and the idea that Denny put together such a fabulous tribute to his dad and to those musicians, and then that now it's come around that he's doing one about us and our group. It's pretty remarkable. I'm pretty blown away by the whole thing. I have an Echo bass, cheap Hofner knockoff, but you'll feel like McCartney. I had an Echo bass too, Rhonda. It has that little headstock that angle that turns up with the E in the thing. And I was playing a gig and my strap broke, and it's got the jack cord goes in the side of the instrument. And I mean, I mustered everything I could to have that bass because I wanted to be like McCartney. And the bass fell on the floor and punched the jack cord through the body. So I ended up with like some electrical tape holding the whole thing together. Ended up finally taking it to a music store on consignment, and the music store went out of business. And I never got any money, and I never got the bass back. They just it was a florist's shop when I went back to check. But the Echo was cool. It was really cool. I really liked it. It was a fun bass, real light, nice neck on those things. Do you ever work with Jim Strasberg drum? No, I never have. You ever heard John McLaughlin's version of When Christ Married? Oh yeah, amazing. Randy, what cables do you prefer? I just hooked up with the company Cordial, and all the chords they sent me have been really pretty nice. They just sent me some MIDI chords to work with, and I've got some good. It's funny. I hooked up with a few people, and then the pandemic hit, and then they're calling me, going, "So how's the stuff working out?" And I go, "I don't know. I haven't worked since you sent it to me." It's a bizarre time. This is just insane. If you can't play with a metronome, would you think it would be lost with a studio click? No, it's a sound. It's just it's just going on. I mean, a metronome and a click are the same thing. It just depends how it's generated. What I don't like is when you find producers or engineers that want to get creative with the click. And they're suddenly giving you these sounds that are nebulous. Man, when I like the old Yuri clicks that we would use like for movies and stuff, and it's like an ice pick going through your forehead. But you can have a 60-piece orchestra and you still hear the click. It's not getting lost in there where they're doing like some kind of weird, little sample sound and all that. If it's going to be a click, use a click. And if you embrace a click, like when I would work with Jeff and Picaro and Carlos Vega and all the great drummers, there could be a click on a track. You would never know it because they knew how to breathe and swim and move around a click so that it never felt that way. It's a tool. It's just a tool, and sometimes it's really necessary, especially if you're working on something and there's a long section before you come back in. I'm grateful to have a click because you're sitting there, counting it out, and it's nice to have something where your downbeat's going to be right there and not just guessing at it because something else has distracted you. Colin, David Hungate. David and I have been friends since the 70s. I love David's bass playing. I love David's attitude. I love his politics. He's a great cat. We used to bump into each other all the time when he lived in Los Angeles. We, like anything else, once people leave town, it's harder and harder to stay in touch. And especially for bass players, like if I got a call to go to Nashville or to work on something, to hook up with David or Michael Rhodes or Mike Brignadella, all these guys, it's really hard. You're just doing your job and then you leave, and that's it. They're not going to be on the date because you're the bass player. So let's see. Tom, other than battery strings and frets, has Frankenstein ever needed repairs? At one point, the neck on Frankenstein got funky, and Mike McGuire, who used to have Valley Arts guitars, took the bass and he put it in a cold press. And it sat there for about a week, and it really got the neck right back into shape. But something was going on with weather and all that, and it got a little funky. But other than that, I've never even hardly had anybody intonate it or anything. It holds really strong. When is the family playing again? Last concert was awesome, Bob. It's all predicated on what's happening. I think we're going to do another live concert in September, and then we'll put it online. We had difficulties with the Coach House one just because whoever was doing sound, there was some issues with the sound, and then we had to get it from them and remix it and get it all right. This time we're going to do a different situation, and we will have it in our hands before it's aired, and we're going to do a whole bunch of other material from that. So, but man, we want to get on the road. We had work lined up and everything had to get canceled, so we are chomping at the bit to get out there and hit the road. Let me see, what strings and gauges do you prefer? Do you set up your own basses? I've been using GHS Super Steel medium lights for years on most of the basses. And I like a 40 for my G strings, so they're 40, 58, 80, and 102. Usually about 124 or something for a 5. But the Dingwall bass, I get strings from Sheldon Dingwall for those because the links are not standard by any means. But I hold on, I've got a big package of GHS 40s for the G string on those because that's still a standard length. But I've got some labellas. I've got a couple of basses with black and white tape wounds on them. I've got my Hofner, it's got flat wounds on that. So whatever's there. Let's see. My Echo was sold at a garage sale in '92 by my stepmother for $10. John, oh man, we all have those regrets. Let's see. I used to practice a lot with the click. I always try to move around the click and groove with it. That helped me very much, Christopher. Yeah, I mean it's a tool, and you use it to benefit your playing. And there's songs where you never want click. You want this thing to breathe and be organic and move. I don't know if I told this story, but I did a project with a Japanese group. And I'm seeing, what was it like playing on Sesame Street with JT? It was fantastic. Waddy and I wanted to stay and be their house band. But I did this Japanese project, and they had programmed all of their stuff back in Japan. And the group came over, and they wanted me to put bass on what they had, and they had Billy Payne from Little Feat doing keyboards. So we did everything for them, and they were happy. And then there was one last song that they thought they would like to try. So they had it programmed, and their drummer was there. So we did it. It was in 3/4. It was like a waltz feel, and they put up the track and the click, and we played it, and it sucked. It was just terrible. And I finally looked at the producer and I said, "Do me a favor. Could we just cut this one time? Turn off the click. Let us just play it." And we played it, and we got it in the next take. And it was great. And I looked in the drum booth, and the drummer was crying. And this was an older, drummer. And I said, what's going on, man? And I went in there, and he said, "I've been playing my whole life. I never knew you could play without a click." He had never, ever sat down at the drums without a click going in his headphones. And man, it was deep. It was a deep moment, cathartic, and and it was great. It was a life changer for him. Now he was going back to Japan, and probably everybody was using click, but at least he had experienced that you can do it without it. But there are times where you want that song just to have the most organic life to it, and the click is going to do nothing but hinder you. So it's not necessary to have it all the time, but there are times when it's great. Do you ever stop in Norm's store in Tarzana, Bob? Yeah. Norm's rare guitar is amazing. It's amazing. It's all kinds of great stuff there. I'm just never looking. I'm not looking for gear, so I don't like going to those places because they immediately want you to check this out. But it's fun to appreciate it. Treadhead. I like Ernie Ball. The thing is, everything in music, to me, and in the arts, is subjective, and I talked about this on an earlier one when I posted Delib's Flower Duet, And some people came on and said that was the dreamiest thing I've ever heard, and other people came on and said it sounded like cats fighting. They're both right. It's subjective. Everything is subjective. It's individuals. You end up finding what works for you. And some people like Ernie Ball, some people like GHS, some people like there's a ton of I used to like Pyramid Gold. I used roto sounds for years. It doesn't matter. Whatever you find that you like. And the same with instruments. People say, what bass do you recommend? I say, go try play a bunch of basses. See what feels good to you, what sounds good. Because what I like, somebody else might think sucks. So you've really got to find your own way through all of this stuff. And the variety of things that are out there is almost unlimited at this point. So, except you can't go in the stores, but that's another discussion. What is the site where you have your instruments for sale? Oh, God, Trey. What the hell is the name of it? Something Empire. Oh God, I'll try to remember by when we're finished with this. Yeah, they still got some basses. They got a great double neck that was a one-off that Warwick built me. It's a fretted and a fretless necks, and I think it's got finger inlay in it. It's in the neck and stuff. What the heck is the name? Techno Empire. TECHNOEMPIRE. Just pull them, Google them up. Techno Empire, and they've still got a whole bunch of stuff for sale. Because I had a warehouse full of equipment that accumulated over the years, and just was never going to use it. And it's not fair to the instruments not to be played, and the amps not to be used and stuff. So we've unloaded a whole bunch of stuff. So it's there. Do you feel there's a difference between playing fan fretted bass in comparison with normal fretted? I go back and forth between fan fretting and standard fretting all the time, and I really don't think about any difference. I just play. It's never psyched me out or been weird, so it hasn't affected me. Some guys think it's it's weird, and all that, but that's, again, you're in the individual mode. Some people are going to think something's shut up, phone. Something that one person's going to think is amazing, and the next person's going to think is too weird for them. So, let's see. Thank you. I was playing with JT on and off heroin. Well, Jesus, it's tragic when you're around people that are dealing with problems, like alcohol and drugs and all that. I mean, they may play well, but it's just it's frustrating because you're watching a life potentially being lost. And then, I was thrilled when James cleaned up. A lot of guys I know, when Luke cleaned. I was just talking to Lukather today. If you haven't seen it, dig up. There's a video out that somebody shot of him the other day, because he woke up in the morning at 7 a.m. There were gardeners next door, like 8 guys with leaf blowers going. So he dragged his marshals out and stuck them up on a trampoline and just cranked them to 11. And went at it out there, and it is the greatest video. So I called Luke today and told him I absolutely love him. And I'll tell you, since he cleaned up, he played great when he was drinking and stuff. But he's such a beautiful cat to hang with now. It's great. Are producers onto your producer switch now? I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are, Scott. And if they're producing properly, I don't need the producer switch. If they have no clue what the hell they're talking about, it might come in handy. But the bass that I'm using most of the time doesn't have it on it, and if nothing else, we all get a good laugh out of it. There were a couple of Yamaha TRB 5Ps for sale on eBay, claiming they were yours. Oh, could have been. I had on the But Serious tour. I used a TRB 5 and a TRB 4, and I let those go. So they could be out there. I just haven't seen it. Tom, those shows with Era Orchestra, Choir, and Star Singer had to be amazing. Biggest group you ever traveled with? Well, the thing is, we didn't really travel so much with all of them. Probably the biggest group I was on the road with was the last tour I did with Veronique Sansom. We had the rhythm section, but we also hired a 48-piece string section from Prague, and they traveled with us. So it was a traveling circus. I'll tell you that. They were amazing, and It was really fun to be with them, and they played just beautifully every night. It was pretty special. We were doing the music of Michel Berger, and that was like one of her great loves of her life. So it was a pretty deep show. It was great. Rick, how's your tooth? Any chance of another live stream, Coach House? Well, Rick, we're not going to do a real live stream. We want to actually be able to make sure everything's right before we send it out. So we'll do a stream, but we're not going to do it live because we had too many weird technical things with the Coach House. But we're going to have some stuff coming out soon. The tooth, I haven't even had time to address it yet, so it's still chipped. It is what it is. I'm curious what your stage monitor mix sounds like. A little bit of everything, or do you prefer? Ian, yeah, first off, like with Phil Collins, I'm the only guy on stage with a wedge. Everybody's in-ears. I'm not an in-ears fan, so I had 2 wedges right down in front of me. My amp behind me, I was in heaven. I had a little of everything in there. I primarily would have Brad Cole and Daryl Sturmer in there. To me, because I was right in front of Nicholas, so I had no issues hearing the drums, and the perk would come across the stage fine. And I could pretty much hear, I had a little bit of the background singers. I had Phil in there, and I had a little bit of the horns because I could hear them acoustically. But primarily it was Brad and myself, and Daryl was my main, and Phil was my main mix on that tour. Do you generally hang around after gigs, or do you split pretty quickly, or does it depend, Robert? Depends. Not the underwear. I love hanging out after a show, and then especially meeting people, especially if there's fans out back. I always love going out and saying hi and all that. On Phil's tour, we pretty much, when we were doing, arenas and stadiums, you have to do a runner, or you're going to be stuck in traffic for the next 3 hours while people are leaving. So pretty much as when we would hit our last note, we would go off stage, run right to vans and jump in them, and they would take us out. But on a lot of tours, like when I would be out with Toto, we hung out. When I'm out with Judith Owen, we spend a lot of time meeting fans afterwards, and I really appreciate that more than anything. I've always been a fan person, and that's what I love about this whole experience. It's just hanging with everybody. It's great, and I love reading the comments on the videos and all of that stuff. Let's see, you've got a great memory. I have to work at it. It's one of these things. I'm really digging deep into some of these things, and I surprise myself sometimes. And I also get things wrong, and I really appreciate the fact that people do my homework for me, and they come in the next day and go, "No, it was so and so. It was that album." Doesn't bug me at all when people do that. It just ups my game and lets me know what the hell I don't know what I'm talking about. What is the Lightwave system, and why is the power supply missing? Was that added after the tour? Trey, it should have a power supply, but I think it's a standard power supply. But the Lightwave system, rather than using magnetic pickups, it has a light beam in the bridge, and so as the string gets played, it's crossing this light beam, and that activates. It's a really unique system. I thought they were really fascinating. But I haven't used one in a long time, and that's why I decided to let that bass go. So, Rick, will you ever do Rick Roberts' Jenny's Blues on YouTube? I always love that bass line. Man, I have not heard it since we cut it. I'd have to go back and listen to it and see. I mean, I'm constantly going back and trying to find things that I can play to, and I'd like to. I would really like to find like inner songs from albums, not just the ones that were the hits, but some of the ones that I like best that were, deep tracks on it. So we'll see. I'm looking every night. Do you ever re-record your bass parts for concert videos? If you mean like after we've done the video, go back and replace a bass part, no, I'd never do that. I like it when they're what they are. So I would never do that. So, sometimes they go back in and tweak a few things, but certainly I've never done that before. Did you ever play the Fox Theater? Oh, yeah, I love Treadhead, man. I love the Fox Theater chain. there's so many great Fox theaters, Atlanta, in I think Schenectady. There's a whole bunch of those, and they were always beautiful old theaters. We would do a lot of those with Lyle Lovett. Lyle loves that circuit of the old theaters. Let's see, how's the finger book going? Okay, Rick, I'm gonna throw out something now. This is momentarily premature, but I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter program for my finger book. We are just about done. I think it's beautiful. It's going to be about 320 pages of pictures in all kinds of mixed year categories and stuff. I mean, it is insane. I'm working with a friend who does art books, and I just spoke with him this morning, and I'm going to be working all weekend, and then we're going to get together next week and start finalizing a lot of this stuff so we can get it off to the publisher, because I'm trying very hard to have it by the end of November so that it'll be available as a Christmas thing. But people have been bugging me for so many years about this. So anybody who's interested, I'm going to be posting some stuff on here about the Kickstarter program and the perks that'll come with donating to that, besides getting first edition runs of the book. And I'll probably have a bunch they'll be signed, by me, and maybe some other perks that'll come with it. So thanks for that question. I feel weird, like I'm not a hustler. It's not my nature at all. I mean, it was weird enough just starting this little Clubhouse store and stuff, but everybody seems to be enjoying it, and I'm finding more really cool stuff that I'm going to put in there, pictures and different things that we can, enjoy. But the Kickstarter, I'm anxious. I'm meeting with a guy next week who's done 2 books using Kickstarter, and he's going to give me some advice on how to do it, and because it's a big deal to get one of these things going, and but I think the end result's going to be great. It's really going to be fun. John Hampton just gave me a whole bunch of fingers. Thank you, John. That's so sweet of you. I just ordered the hoodie with the finger. Rick Avari, great. I'd be super thrilled to help with that Kickstarter. Yeah, I'll let you all know. And let's see, Tala, what does your wife do for a living? She just enjoys life. When we first got married, she was making the money. She was she was a phone operator, and hold on just a minute.
Are you almost through?
No. Oh. Yeah. You want to say hello to everybody? She just snuck her head in here to see what was going on. She can't believe I talked this long, but then she goes, "He's a blabbermouth." But she was a phone operator and did deliveries for a delicatessen. And then I was the starving musician. And I said to her, if I ever start making any money at this, you don't have to work. And then I started making money, and she said, I am through working. So it's cool. It's cool. Rhonda, Sarah Maria from Gorilla is beautiful. Yeah, I mean, all of James's writing is really amazing. I mean, he's one of the greatest writers of the generation, he would come up to me. I remember when he came up to me when we were cutting it, and he said, "I got this song. You think we ought to cut it?" And he plays me Mill Worker, and I wanted to punch him in the mouth, and I would have sawed my legs off to write a song like that. And he's just going, "You think it's good enough for the record?" It's like, Jesus. Whatever. Let's see, going on. It's too late. No, Gary, it's not too late. To get in the book, yeah, maybe so at this point, because, see, the thing that's really difficult with the book is I have over 11,000 photographs of people flipping me off, and I'm not sure how many we're going to be able to get in this book. I mean, the thing, if I used all of the pictures, this thing would be, 1,000 pages long. I mean, we're mixing it up with full page, collage pages, all kinds of stuff, and stories. So, but if it goes well, I'll do volume 2. I have enough pictures to do at least another book or 2, and I'm always adding to them. I'm still taking pictures of people all the time doing it. So, we'll see what happens. It's just been one of these things that's been going on for so long, of people saying, "Are you ever going to do it? Are you ever going to do it?" And it's been my screensaver on my laptop for years. I just keep adding pictures, so when the thing goes into screensaver mode, pictures just start, showing up on the screen. what I, yeah, the when I said to them what I know is etched in mud, we're going to do a T-shirt of that. I already sent it to Aaron. It's just he's been busy and he's trying to get some stuff together. There's stories behind all the photos ultimately, but I can't write stories for everything in there. But there's a bunch of them, like people like Jack Nicholson and stuff. And just the man on the street. How was it recording with Alice Cooper? I loved it. I've known Alice since '68, and when we did his album, it was fun. I've always been a big Alice Cooper fan. I love, and that's just I love theater. It's like I could care less about going to a Kiss concert. And not necessarily hearing the best playing in the world, but the show. Yes, it's fun. It's fun, and this is we're in the entertainment field, so I love all that stuff. I watch you on Billy Thorpe, Texas, too, are doing solo nose picker. Wow, I forgot about that. It's nothing like ingratiating yourself to the audience when you kind of scratch your strings and you're going like that, and they all go nuts. Can you do a Zoom call so a bunch of people could flip you off at once, the COVID version? Well, we'll see. Let's see what I can come up with. Where did they get submitted to? The thing is, the pictures I'm using, to avoid legal ramifications, they're all pictures I've taken. I'm the one that has to be taking the pictures. Otherwise, somebody might come to you and say, "Hey, man, you didn't get my permission to use my picture." So it's complicated. Let's see. Were you on your 1-1 chats on Saturday? Yeah, I was on those chats. It was great. I had a great time with everybody, and I was on from 9 in the morning till 6 at night doing one-on-ones, and lots of cool stuff. One guy could not get on, and I just said the hell with it and sent him a note and called him on Sunday, and we talked. He was in London and was having technical issues over there. Hear the puppies in the background. Yeah, I think they just went into the backyard. It's pretty warm, so they're staying in the house. I think my wife just let them out, or they're back in and they're in the den now. They are a couple of lunatics. It's really fun. It's like I just remember the happy wife, happy life. You hope so. Let's see, what do we got here? Did Immediate Family ever do a song call? No, somebody wrote to me. They said on Amazon Music there's a couple of songs by a group called The Immediate Family. I have not seen that, and we cleared the name legally. So I have no idea what that's all about, but I'm going to look into that. In the same way, when we had the section together, there was some like string quartet that was called The Section that I found out about. So hold on one sec. Let me see what's going on. Yeah, just the pups are out on the patio. I'm going to look into that, though. I think the management should look into that. Any chance of a Jostle Zoom show? Jostle was fun. It was Jonas Hellberg, Steve Bailey, and myself, and we put this group together for Warwick. And Chester Thompson played drums with us. And I told the guys I would only join if I didn't have to play a solo. I said, I'll play the bass parts, and you guys go ahead and do all the blowing on it, because they love that. Steve, man, is a monster at it. Jonas Hellberg's like a monster. I'm really content just playing bass, so I did that, and we would do like Stratus and stuff like that. But all that stuff's kind of Steve's. Jonas is in Sweden. Steve's in Boston at Berkeley. So I don't know if we would ever put anything together. But last time I was at Berkeley, there was a song called Lobster Foam that we put together, and Steve and I resurrected it and recorded it in his office. So that's floating around somewhere. We'll see. The future is so weird right now. We just don't know what's happening. It's one of those things that anything can happen. I mean, if my YouTube channel could happen through this, anything can happen, because this was the most kind of unplanned thing. I put up a couple of videos just to answer some questions that I'd been sent, and then I suddenly had people going, "Man, we love your YouTube channel," and I would go, "What are you talking about?" They go, "Well, no, your new channel." I had no idea. Like a few videos turned into a channel, and now it's just taken on a life of its own, and I'm loving it. So when I look at all these things like a jostle Zoom or any of the immediate family stuff or any of that, to me, there's no reason why something can't happen. I think it's all fair game at this point because we're all in this together. And that's where somebody said good night, Colin. Did Colin have to? Oh, good night, everyone. Thank you. Colin, hey, Colin, man, all the best wishes. You take good care, and I'll see you hopefully in 2 weeks. We're going to figure out a date for the next live chat. Sorry, Archie, sugar. Those are let's see. You might want to put just put the link to the swag shop. Yeah, because what's happening with the swag, I mean, it's a little weird negotiating that, but on each of my videos on YouTube, I've put a link to the Clubhouse, and when you go to the Clubhouse, on the upper left corner of it, there's like 2 lines. And you click on those things and it opens up. It's like Rick Beato and Tim Pierce. Everybody's got a little circle in there with their picture in it. Click on my picture and then that opens up the store for my stuff because each guy has his own stuff available in there. And there's a bunch of people involved. So go to those 2 little slash marks up in the upper left-hand corner on the screen after you go to that. But go to go watch go to one. You don't have to watch the video. Just go to the video, and just like below the start of the video, there's going to be a little thing in there, and it shows the link to the Clubhouse. Which do you prefer, huge stadium stages or cramped stage in a small club? In a perfect world, I love a small club. Man, I enjoy being able to, taste the audience, hear them breathing, connecting, man, just like right there with them. I mean, there's something amazing, playing, big stadiums, playing 100,000 seat, soccer stadium and all that. But there's something so, I mean, I spent my whole life playing clubs. And like when I go out with Judith, I remember we were in north of England, kind of near the Lakes region, and we were playing in a pub, and there's probably like 50 people in the pub. And afterwards, a couple of guys came up to me and they go, "Man, last time I saw you," except they said it with a really different accent. But they said, "Last time I saw you, you were in Wembley Stadium, and you're in our pub. What's going on?" I said, "I'm playing great music." I said, "Are you having a good time?" And they went, "Well, yeah." I said, "Good. That's it. That's all that matters." I mean, it's great when you can reach a lot of people at once, but it's, there's something of the intimacy of a small club that's really pretty special. Jim, do you have any specific practice routine scales, or do you just work through? Yeah, I don't have any kind of any practice routine at all. Generally, for me, practicing means I'm working on a song. I run scales crappy. I've had enough hand injuries where, my facility, I watch some people play and they're just exquisite watching how they play. I'm not that kind of a guy. So I just work on songs and I create parts, and then I'll go back and, for just practicing, every couple of nights I'll drag out our last tour with Phil and just play the whole show. Just sit there and play it, just to kind of keep my mind sharp with that, and you never know. Your fingers were all, maybe someday he'll come back. I don't know. We'll see. John McLaughlin, you go right. Yeah, John McLaughlin played on One Man Dog. It was great. I mean, we were all kind of connected because Mahavishnu Orchestra was being managed by a man named Nat Weiss, and Nat Weiss was partnered with Peter Asher, who managed James. So there was this kind of a community of guys, and that's how the section ended up opening for Mahavishnu, because we all knew each other. But we were on the road early, like one of the first tours with James, and Nat called Cooch and I to his room, and he said, "I got to play you guys something, see what you think." And it was the first test pressing of Birds of Fire, and Cooch and I looked at him and said, "Play that again." I mean, it completely blew our minds. So then when we end up on the road with him, it was pretty damn cool. Let's see, Aaron. Albert's been doing these transcriptions of the videos from the beginning. Man, Albert is brilliant. His Albert Anguilla Rosewell has transcribed practically everything I've put on YouTube, and I every day I download one. I'm going to make myself a folder of all these. And I write to Albert all the time, and he's a seriously great bass player. But man, taking on this as a project is pretty amazing. Use all your fingers on your fretting. Well, I on my left hand, I still play with some of the rules of upright because that's how I train. So I don't really use my third finger until I'm above the octave. And it's old habits that stick with you. And but let's see. Philip, can you accept any more friends on your personal face? Probably not. I hated that about Facebook, that they cut you off, at 5,000. But it's one of those things that if I would have known, I would have just done a fan page, because apparently on fan pages you can have unlimited amount of people. But I filled up with, I was enjoying it, so I just said, yeah, accept. Next thing I knew, like 8 days into it, I was like, maxed out. Now I've dumped a lot of people because there's some people that came on that were really out of their minds, and they were pretty toxic, and I had to get rid of them. But every once in a while, something will open up. But it's kind of hard, and I'm not going to take the time to go through and unload people who I really have no idea who the hell they are. It's just because people I accepted years ago. So I wish I could. I wish I could do more with that, But I don't want to start another page because between YouTube, the band, starting doing home recording, bass parts, all this stuff. The last thing I need is another Facebook page. Plus, I got kicked off of Twitter, so I'm not there anymore. I'll throw stuff on Instagram once in a while, but it's not the format. I'm long-winded, so I'd really rather just have something where I can just rant and rave. So let me see. Can you accept anyone? What happened to Don Myrick, and how did you? Don Myrick, as best I know, Don was the sax player in the Phoenix Horns from Earth, Wind, and Fire, and he was on the No Jacket Required tour and on the But Serious tour. And apparently there was some kind of a thing at the apartment complex he lived in, and the police came, and he answered the door, and he might have been lighting a cigarette or doing something, but he had a cigarette lighter that was, and I've seen him in novelty shops, that was shaped like a gun. And he opens the door with this thing in his hand, and the police killed him. They shot him, killed him. It was unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. Just a complete waste of a guy's life at that moment. Really tragic. How do you explain your YouTube explosion of popularity to your wife? I really haven't. She knows, that I'm spending a lot of time at it and going, are you still upstairs working on that stuff? But she's got her own life on that. Philip, he said, do you use Twitter? Well, Twitter kicked me off about 3 weeks ago. They terminated my account. They wouldn't explain why, but it is what it is. Any Swedish musicians you've worked with? Yeah, a number of them over the years. I think Pi Bachman is Swedish, and I did an album with Pi. I'd have to go back and dig up names on these things. Had a great time. I love going to Sweden. Sweden's really spectacular, and I loved, like, last time I was there with Judith, we got in a cab and said, what would you recommend to do? And he immediately took us to the Vasa, and we went and saw that. And the Vasa is like the biggest wooden ship ever created. And there's a fabulous museum in Stockholm where this thing now resides, where after it spent like 300 years at the entrance to the harbor at the bottom, because it sank on its maiden voyage, because they put in an extra row of guns for ego, and a wave came in and capsized the thing. It's an amazing museum, well worth seeing if you're there. And then I went to the ABBA Museum, which was really great. I loved it. Okay, let's see what else here. Wait, does anybody have the link to those transcriptions? Matt, just on Facebook, or go to his page. I think he's posting it on Facebook. If somebody has a link, put it up. But the transcriptions are really amazing. You're going to get so busy at home that you won't be able to work on the road? Absolutely not, man. I'm chomping at the bit to hit the road. I love being on tour. So, Sean, that's okay. And what I'm going to do is when we hit the road, then I'm going to do this from the road. I'm gonna do videos and show all the kind of backstage stuff and rehearsals and introduce people and do that. So no, I'm gonna enjoy this so much. I'm just gonna keep this going. It'll change formats, and then when I get off the road, I'll be back here doing it like this again. So let's see. Have you ever heard the Troy Rodriguez the film? Oh, the movie Sugarman. Yeah, amazing story. Yeah, Rick Converse just wrote Albert's Facebook page. Said, and the Doug Stale said somebody is transcribing it. This Albert's doing a remarkable job with that. I was working with Jim Carroll. I really liked Jim Carroll. We had there's some amazing time in the studio with that guy. He was really a great writer. Ever meet Johnny Carson? Yeah, kind of met Johnny. I did the show many times with Johnny, but Johnny's was kind of enigmatic. He'd come down the hall and everybody would be kind of cleared back. So, he had his thing. But he would, smile and say hi and all that. But never actually got a handshake out of him. Will you and Judith ever play South Florida? Well, if everything opens up and she gets offered gigs there, I'm sure we will. I mean, I would love to get a chance to. I love going down there because I get a chance to see Phil too, because Phil lives in Miami. So, did you ever work with two of my favorite Kenny's Rogers and Loggins? I never got to work with Kenny Rogers. I had a friend who played bass with him on tour for years, and he was great. I know Kenny very well. I think I did a project with Kenny years ago. I know I did. I don't think I did a Loggins and Messina. I think I might have done an individual thing, and I did some stuff with Jim Messina over the years too. The touring life. Do you ever sleep on buses while they're driving to the next town? Rarely. On the bus, I'm usually up. I'm like one of the only guys on the bus that's still awake. Everybody's in their bunks, farting and sawing logs. And the best thing that happened to tour buses was getting internet on them. Because then you could stay up all night and, you could watch Netflix, you could take care of stuff and do all kinds of stuff. But it's not that it's uncomfortable or anything. I'm just not much of a sleeper. So, once in a while I'd crawl into a bunk, but a lot of times my bunk became the catch-all bunk. Everybody would throw all their crap in my bunk, and then I'd think, maybe I'll go lay down, and you open up your curtain and it's full of crap in there. So just kind of lay down on the couch. It's fine with it. Was David Letterman as big a music fantasy? I think David was a big fan. David was pretty distant. He's one of those guys that really didn't come out. I mean, he would come out and interact a little bit, but you weren't allowed to stand in the wings while he was on there. The stage manager would come and say, he can see you here. You have to move and stuff. They all have their own idiosyncrasies. See, how overwhelming was your first gig opening for Zeppelin? Rhonda, it was amazing. I mean, I was in Wolfgang, and we had rehearsed, and Bill Graham was our manager, and so the first gig he gives us to play was opening for Zeppelin at Winterland in 1968, I think it was. It was mind-blowing. I mean, it's like trial by fire. But it was a great band, and we definitely held our own on that show. I mean, not in an egocentric way, but we walked off stage proud, and it wasn't an embarrassment. And then they came on and killed it. I love Zeppelin, huge Zeppelin fan. Tony Smith, how did you hurt your finger? I was working on a coffee table the other day, and there was like a bit of a bolt sticking out. And I have like a big heavy-duty pliers with a great cutter in it. And I just wanted to snip off the end of this screw that was sticking out because it was the only screw I could find, and it was just a hair long. And the thing slipped and just grabbed my fingertip. This whole fingertip was purple and twice as big. Now it's gotten down where there's just still some blood under the skin, but still really sensitive. But just every once in a while, your brain melts and you do something really stupid and you pay the price for it. Talus Treats. Yeah, my brother's really missing touring right now. We all are. All the players I know are, I mean, when I was talking to Lukather this morning, I mean, it's like all we talk about is, man, we're just missing being on tour. It's it's our DNA. It's what we were built to do, and not doing it is really hard. So, but you have to find some way of. Ian, good night. You take good care of yourself, and look forward to seeing you next time you come through here. We'll let you know when that's going to be. Is there some way a person can send you something for your collection? If you're talking collection of this, probably not, because I wouldn't have taken it. Because really I'm trying just to hold on to all the ones, that I've done. Just so that I don't run into any kind of weird legal issues with people coming at me later going, you didn't get my clearance to use my stuff. So whatever. But I mean, if everybody's cool, I think we're a couple hours now here, so let me see. You sure you composer credit with Judith, somebody's child? Do you have music inside that? Blair, I've never felt really the writing bug. I've been, maybe it was probably one of the problems I had was when you really start working, and you're working with like James Taylor and Jackson Browne and Crosby, Stills and Nash, all these people. You're working with and Joni Mitchell and Carole King. You're working with these amazing writers, and you just kind of go, I don't know if I could do that, and then you become kind of a defeatist about it. But I like to focus more on helping, being part of the arranging, things like that. So you never know what'll happen. I mean, I've contributed to songs where, if I was really being honest about it, I would say I should have been given like partial writer's credit, because a lot of times like the bass part has been the major hook that made the song happen. But I just don't want to open that can of worms, with people, because suddenly a great relationship can go south, and you don't want it to chance that. So, Tony, thanks. Tony, you take good care. Thank you for the fingers on there, and that's great. Let's see. I've noticed all your basses have two or more pickups. How do you prefer to use them? I usually, on all my basses, I tend to crank everything up, and then just roll back maybe the neck pickup just a skosh on that, and sometimes maybe, depending on how active the bass is, maybe turn the treble back down. On tone, I'll if it's really active, I'll pull back the bass and mids a little bit so you're not overdriving it. But it's all specific to the different instruments, and then also the different songs. Rick, I don't know yet. I mean, we're going through stuff. We'll see what happens, and maybe that's the reason why there will be a volume 2 eventually, because going through 11,000 pictures, it's daunting. Finding, it's like going through the James Taylor or Carole King songs to make a set. You just you're delirious after a while. So we'll see. Thoughts on acoustic bass guitars? They're great. They're great. I've got a few of them. I've got an old Washburn AB45 that I made into a fretless that I absolutely love, and I have an AB40. I have a few of them, and in the right circumstances, those are really fun ones to put like the tape wound strings on. Stuff, but I'll use anything. I'm not a gearhead. I'm not one of those guys that talks gear all the time. I go to the NAMM show. I could care less about the gear there. I just go there to hang out with friends and manufacturers like the Roger Sadowskis and all those guys, just to say hi and hang out. Let's see. I was listening to Barefoot Servants again, and this morning, Dan. Man, Barefoot Servants is still one of the best projects I ever did. And John Butcher is probably one of the best singers I've ever worked with, and badass guitar player. I miss those guys so much. But we had our chance, and it just didn't happen. Kim, good night to you too. I'm just going to give you guys all a collective good night. I think I don't want to use up all my stories this time. I'll try to come up with a few more. But I'll keep you all posted on the Kickstarter. I appreciate that people were talking, saying, yeah, let us know about that. because I think it's going to be really a cool project. I think it'd be really a great Christmas gift to give somebody. And we've got kind of a surprise for the cover and all that. So I'll keep you posted on that, and we're going to figure out the date for the next one and then send out a blast for that. So all I want to say is, man, stay safe. Do whatever you got to do to keep yourself, your friends, your families safe. I have a number of people I know now who have died. And Trini Lopez, who I just loved, just died from this. So let's, whatever you got to do. And there's so many different thoughts and rumors and talk going on. Whatever you do, just try to be careful. And, we're all valuable. And there's really no reason to do something. It's like all the times I would go to Japan. I've been there many times. When somebody isn't feeling well, there's a culture there of group rather than individual. So if somebody isn't feeling well, they just boom, put a mask on, and they don't want to spread germs or anything. It's not that big a deal. It shouldn't be a political thing. It shouldn't be anything. It's a health issue, and I don't want to take the chance that you might be wrong by people saying, "Oh, I don't need to." The next thing I'm hearing, these people are dead. So please take care of yourselves. You're all really, this community is really important to me, and I really value everybody who's here. And I value me, so I'm going to stay safe too. And look forward to seeing everybody. And it was kind of fun visiting the bunch of videos since my finger's been bugging me. It's fun going through all these little videos and stuff. I'm going to probably do a couple more days of those because I got some really ridiculous stuff that I filmed over the years, and I'll just keep throwing it up there too. So hopefully I'll see you all tomorrow, and back to work, as one would say. So you're all the best. Thank you so much for coming and visiting and being a part of this adventure we're all on, that's for sure. So see you tomorrow.